Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Smriti. I'm from a suitable agency. A very warm welcome to Suitable Conversations at Sunder Nursery. A suitable agency started this series of conversation in 2021 with the idea that we could get together, spend a winter afternoon in one of the loveliest places in the heart of New Delhi, Sunder Nursery, where we are right now, and listen to and interact with writers and artists as they speak on their craft. Over the last 2 years, this event has grown into something very special. And we'd like to thank the team at Sunder Nursery who have been wonderful partners in this journey. Today, at the first event of the third season of Suitable Conversations at Sunder Nursery, we are very fortunate to have our speaker, two very distinguished speakers this evening, eminent mythologist and writer Devdutt Pattanaik, and the MD of Teamwork Arts, well known to every literature lover for producing the Jaipur Literature Festival, Sanjoy Roy. Devdutt writes on mythology, and he defines as cultural truths revealed through stories, symbols, and rituals. He lectures on the relevance of both Indian and Western myths in modern life. In the last 25 years, he has authored and illustrated over 50 books, including Book of Ram and Bahubali. Known for his TED Talk and TV shows such as Devlok and Business Sutra, he is a regular columnist for reputed papers, The Times of India and Dainik Bhaskar. A medical doctor by training, Devdutt spent 15 years working in pharma and healthcare industry. But over the past decade, he has been fully immersed in exploring mythology and sharing its wisdom with the world. Sanjoy K. Roy, an entrepreneur of arts, is managing director of Teamwork Arts, which produces over 33 festivals in 42 cities and 17 countries, including the world's largest literary gathering, the Jaipur Literature Festival, and international editions of JLF. He is the founder trustee of Salam Balak Trust, working to provide support services for street and working children in the inner city of Delhi. Roy is the co-chair of the Arts Culture Committee of Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He lectures at and works in collaboration with leading universities across the world. Devdutt and Sanjoy will be speaking on a very intriguing subject today, the geography of mythology. Where do gods reside? A very warm welcome to our speakers. After the conversation, we will take a few questions from the audience, and finally, we'll be having a book signing session. For now, over to the speakers, and thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you to a suitable agency for hosting this conversation, and for all of you to come out to Sunder Nursery despite the AQI. I'm not sure what it's peaked at today, but welcome to this place. And Devdutt, welcome to Delhi and to Sunder Nursery. I don't know whether you have walked around this place, and we'll check whether any god resides in Sunder Nursery. I'm sure they do. I've had the pleasure of reading 4 of Devdutt's book in this last week, back to back. So that means I have still about 46 books left to read, should I actually have to go through all of his work. But it's fascinating to see how the width of the work that he does, everything from Jainism and Buddhism and Hindu mythology and across the world. But today we're going to talk about gods and where they live and where they reside, and some of the geographical aspects and the way the country was divided by Lord Shiva and Parvati. We'll come to that. But Devdutt, I was always under the impression that gods resided within us.
So that's a very metaphysical answer. So that's nice to tell people. And by the way, this simple sentence that God resides within you itself is a very Indian sentence. In most parts of the world, it won't be understood. The idea, am I audible? Yeah. So in most parts of the world, a sentence like God resides within you won't be understood. God is either transcendental, so completely outside, or located in a specific geography. So in this temple, in this house. So depending on which belief you have, there is this different places where God exists, inside you, outside the universe. So, and I've suddenly that's the reason I wanted to have this conversation, because you suddenly realize that space is something that we don't explore when we talk mythology. We usually discuss time, and we talk about sacred time. We talk about history. We talk about the past. History as mythology is past, but mythology as space is something that is rarely discussed.
We're sitting in this beautiful Sunder Nursery with trees and so on and so forth. Primarily, Hinduism, to a large extent, to what we today know, was an animistic, derived from the animistic tradition. And in earlier times, it was here that God resided.
Well, the earliest evidence of religion in India comes from the Harappan seals. And you clearly have a Harappan seal which shows a goddess-like figure emerging from a tree. So, trees have been sacred across the world. I mean, it's not unique to India, or at least their fertility symbols, they're associated. So plants have played a very important role. Across India, even today, there's something called a Devrai. Devrai is something that if you go to Goa, there are these spaces that you're not allowed to use as pasture, or you're not allowed to develop as an agricultural space. And they said the gods reside there. You're not allowed to go there. Of course, now they're being destroyed with developmental activities happening. But Devrai is a very, very powerful concept of sacred groves. And I always tell people that, instead of building temples, why don't you build groves, just forests, because that's where the goddess resides. And traditionally and it's funny, in India, all the gods are associated with these kind of spaces. Like Hanuman is associated with Kadalivan, plantain forest, or Ganesha is associated with Ikshuvan, which is sugarcane forest. So you have these notions of forest. So the goddess is with neem forests, tamarind forests. Krishna is with Madhuban and Vrindavan. So you have these constant reference to forests, gods. It's almost as if they're going to standing somewhere there peeping out at us. And Kantara film was very popular, and it is up talking about the forest gods and this tension between the settled spaces. So I think when you read mythology, you become very aware of nature. Plants, animals, birds. And I try to make people aware of it. It makes you aware of it.
Our oral traditions pretty much looked at the environment. Even if you look at all the Vahans of most of our gods, they actually come from the larger animal and the oceans.
So in the Vedic texts, the gods don't have Vahans. So when you read the Vedas, of course, we nowadays believe that all our texts are 5,000 years old. They all erupted 5,000 years ago.
So perhaps you need to just say what a Vahan is.
So Vahan, incidentally, the word, have you heard of Wagoner? So Vahan, and the German word for wagon comes from the same source. It basically means a vehicle or a cart that takes you. And we believe that in the Vedic scriptures, there are no Vahan. There are chariots, some pulled by bullocks. That was the old carts. Then some pulled by donkeys, some pulled by horses. Horses, because they were about 4,000 years ago, they were very small animals. So the cart had to be very light. So they created this spoked wheel chariot, which is the great innovation about 3,000, 4,000 years ago. But then somewhere in the Puranic period, what is called Puranic period would be around 1,500 years ago, we suddenly have the idea of gods traveling on animals. So you have Vishnu on a eagle, or Shiva on a bull, the goddess on a tiger or a lion, depending on which part, like Gujarat tiger and Bengal tiger. So Bengal has tigers and Gujarat has lions. So, you have these...
Ganesh ji on a chuha.
Then you have Kartikeya on a peacock. So you have these animals suddenly appearing, and then you find this in other parts, not just in Hinduism. Jainism, the gods, the various Tirthankaras are linked to... Rishabhadev is associated with a bull. You have Mahavir associated with a lion. Parshvanath associated with a serpent. So suddenly animals and plants, they all are associated with plants. So every god will have it almost has a symbol. Like the god needs to have a plant. The god needs to have an animal. The Tirthankar needs to have a plant. So all 24 Tirthankars have 24 plants associated with them. not all of them are animals, but some of them have artifacts. But you see, when you read mythology, and, as a student of mythology, one of the things that struck me was how much, if you genuinely dive deep into mythology, you get into the world of botany, zoology. You have to ask questions. I'll give you an example. And you have to think like a child. Imagine you say Shivji lives on Mount Kailas. Okay, so we have described this beautiful place. Mount Kailas is a mountain of stone covered with snow. And Shiva rides a bull, Nandi Bell. By the way, many people in Bombay think Bell is a cow. So Nandi is a cow. And I keep saying, nahi, wo guy nahi hai. Then it gets gender conversations.
Then it has to be Nanda.
Then it gets very awkward. That's a milk brand also. So when you see this, imagine thinking like a child. And a child asks the parents, Kailas Parbat mein sab baraf hai. So there's no vanaspati, there's no grass. So what does the bull eat? Nandi kya khata hai? And the parent has no answer because we have not put two and two together. And it struck me the first time I realized it, that the bull has nothing to eat in Mount Kailas. And then you realize the goddess has a tiger or a lion. And what does the tiger and lion eat? It eats a bull. And suddenly you realize you're talking about an ecosystem, right? There's grass, but not there. There is a bull who should be terrified of the fact that there's a lion next, but seems to be very calm. Or, Shiva's serpent eats a snake, eats a rat. And the rat is with Ganesha, and you have...
Or Kartik's peacock.
So you see predator-prey happening once you start joining the dots. And then you say, hey, they're trying to tell you something. It's a puzzle. And they're talking about the food chain. And they're saying, you know what? In Kailas Parbat, nobody's hungry. And if nobody's hungry, then nobody's frightened because nobody's going to eat you. The bull is not frightened. The rat is not frightened. The snake is not frightened. Nobody's frightened. And then you realize, that's what they're trying to tell you. They're trying to use animals and space and snow to communicate the emotion which Kailas is supposed to evoke. This place.
And the balance.
And the absence of hunger. That's an important idea because, see, everybody talks about Buddhism as desire is the cause of suffering. We learned this line. Buddha never used the word desire. That's an English translation. Buddha used the word thirst, tanna. And we are an agricultural farming people. And imagine these like people sitting together and talking. And you're saying, सबसे तकलीफ कहाँ से होता है? भूख से तकलीफ होता है यार. जिस दिन भूख मिट जाएगी, सब अच्छा हो जाएगा. And they're saying, अच्छा भूख तब मिटेगी, शिवजी जब आएंगे. So now you're explaining a concept. How to explain the concept? I use something concrete. I use animals, I use plants, I use space. I think that's powerful. That's communication at a very 101 communication.
Just going back to the grove idea, we know, say, for example, in the Jharkhands and Chhattisgarhs and Orissas, many of the sacred grove places which the tribals still look at as their sacred space is actually the lodestar. It's mineral enriched and therefore so precious. How is it that they sort of figured that this was where all the precious stuff actually sat?
So there are two reasons for this. I don't know how much they knew. What we do know is that Indian tribes had access to iron much earlier than other cultures. So one of the unique features about India had an iron age much earlier than other cultures because they could make iron across Chhattisgarh and all the tribal communities. And that played a very important role in developing farms. Remember, we don't realize that the Gangetic Plain at one time was a thick forest. And to cut the trees, to plow the field, you needed iron. And where was the iron? The iron were with these tribal people who sort of knew how to melt rock and produce iron. Today we don't think about it, but India was the home of iron. And I think one of the reasons they withdrew to the forest is they used iron for the hunting and foraging practices. But another group of people decided that they can use iron to create fields. So they would level the forest, they would burn the forest. So Mahabharata has memory of it, the forest being burnt and the creation of a field. And I think the tribal community withdrew from these spaces. They did not want to do the agricultural revolution bit. In fact, in the Bhagavata, there is a story of a king called Vena who plunders the earth. And then they churn his body out and they divide, from his body comes two beings. One called Prithu, the leveler of the earth. So Prithu is the one who levels the earth. And another being called Nishadha, who goes to the forest and says, I don't want to be part of this agricultural revolution. And I believe they are trying to tell you that there are people who chose, we don't want to be part of this, and they chose to live with nature. So what is called sarnaism, I think that's the word they use nowadays. And we do believe that some of these practices were there in Harappa, some of them, not all of them. But there is clearly a very strong tribal culture. If we go to Bhopal, there's a tribal museum there. It's sad that we need museums now to protect them. But you get a sense of the forest, the wild spaces. And I think that's a very important, in the Vedas, for example, space is very important. Samaved, all the hymns of the Rig Veda are turned into melodies. And the melodies are classified into melodies for the forest, melodies for the settlement. And this is the first time we see this division of space. तो जंगल आरण्य के लिए कुछ है और फिर ग्राम के लिए for the settlement. And this division recurs in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. This constant reference. The forest, you go to the forest, they encounter forest people. So the Vanaras and the Bhalukas and the Rakshasas and the different beings in the forest. And then they come back to the Nagara and they come back to the Grama. And Krishna himself is a forest dweller. He is Madhubana, Vrindavana, basil forest, a fragrant forest. And then he moves, if you look at the life of Krishna, it moves from someone who lives in the village, then he goes to Gokul, then he goes to Mathura, then he goes to Indraprastha. So you suddenly see this young man from India 3 to India 2 to India 1 or whatever, Bharat 3 and Bharat 2 and Bharat 1. So he's making this journey toward urbanization. And these are things that we don't capture.
Urbanization and destruction.
Well, urbanization, all creation.
Well, the war at the end.
Yeah, everything is about destruction because of destruction is in India is seen as part of life. The question is of how much. It's not about destroying. Destroying is fine, but you have to compensate because every time you consume, you are in debt. So you have to repay your debt, and that's very important.
Netanyahu is going to do a lot of repaying, but anyway.
So repayment of debt is so you can cut a tree because you need wood, right? So you'll go to cut a tree, but now uska red tumhe chukana padega. So debt is a very, very important idea in Indian thought, which we have forgotten.
Let's come back to debt in a second. Before we go into the actual geography of stuff, will you tell us the difference between Devlok, Asura, and the Rakshasas? Okay. Because sometimes we tend to look at Rakshas and Asura as the same, but of course they're not.
So it's also a function of time over time. So if you read the Vedic scriptures, they speak of 3 worlds, but all the 3 worlds are above the earth. So there's the earth, there's the sky, and there's Antariksh between the 2. And the early Vedic scriptures, there's no Asura as such. Later, you start finding this kind of the bad guy whom they don't like. So obviously, it's an agricultural economy which doesn't like the non-agriculturists. And you have these Asura Rakshasa words being used interchangeably, to be fair. But by the time what is called the Puranic tradition emerges, a very clear cosmogony and a world has emerged. Swarg is the realm of the devas. Swarg is the realm of... So again, I'll use the word hunger to explain this. It's easier to understand. Swarg is somewhere in the celestial region, the sky, and all your desires are fulfilled in Swarg. So you have the wish-fulfilling tree, your wish-fulfilling cow, you have the wish-fulfilling jewels. That's Devlok. Fantastic place. Everything that you desire is there. Apsaras are there. Gandharvas are there. There's music and there's dance and there's a party all the time. Everybody's partying. Everybody's having a good time. You can drink and not get a hangover. So there's Varuni. Everything is there. Beautiful place. Opposite that, at the opposite end, under the earth is Patal. And in Patal live the Asuras. So Patala, below the feet, so live the Asuras. Honestly, the description of the Asura world is full of metal and gold. And it's also under the earth is Nagalok. So Nagalok is where the snakes reside. So there's no moral judgment at this point. They're not good and bad guys. There's the rich gods in the sky, and then there are rich Asuras under the earth. Now you have to extract wealth from under the earth. So you have to keep extracting wealth from under the earth. We extract wealth from under the earth, right? Oil comes from under the earth, minerals come from under the earth, water comes from under the earth. So the Asuras have access to that. You want that wealth. So you declare war on them, literally, and take Lakshmi. So Lakshmi is called the daughter of the Asuras. So Lakshmi is called Asura Putri, but the wife of the gods, Deva Patni. So she transforms. So now you see this conflict between the Devas and the Asuras. And this is really a material conflict of raw materials in Patal being extracted into refined stuff in Swargalok. And there is this kind of, we all do that. We all create these fabulous houses, but you have to destroy something. So that's, Rakshasas are slightly different. Rakshasas are something you encounter really in the Ramayana. And the rishis, as they go into the forest, are encountering the Rakshasas. And the rishis are talking about yajnas. They're performing these yajnas. And yajna is a metaphor for exchange, trading. I give you something, you give me something. Swaha tathastu. So it's really the birth of civilization. Because human civilization, if you ask archaeologists, archaeology will say civilization is a culture which exchanges goods. All humans have cultures, but some cultures exchange, and that is called a civilization. So rishis are going around saying that, we should exchange. Rakshasas says, this is not our way. We don't want to do this. We want to live our way, and they grab things, they forage, they hunt. So as from the rishis' point of view, that's a barbarian. And there is this kind of a tension between the rishi and the Rakshasas. So Rakshasas and rishis are horizontal. Devas and asuras are vertical. So it's now, for me, it's a vertical conversation and it's a horizontal conversation. And that's how you see the devas and the asuras.
So in this whole thing of, because in Hindu philosophy, of course, we don't have this concept of sin per se or evil. When the devas ran away with, or when the devas stole Amrit from, how did that play out? And how is it that they still seem to be the goodies, the good guys, as opposed to...
So this is the problem of translation. Because the British, when we are translating the word deva, we translate just God. And in our head, God is good. Right? You think of God as good. But that's a language problem. If I didn't know an English word, I'd say Dev, Swarg mein hote, wo to chant hai. But nobody would use the negative word for that. वो देव है, वो भगवान नहीं है. इंद्र देवता है, भगवान नहीं है. So Bhagwan is morally superior, wise and all that. Indra is not expected to be. So that's one of the things that language plays. There's something called, the devas are ordinary beings. They are part of the cosmos, like the asuras. And then there is this new idea which emerges called Bhagwan, Ishwar, which is much higher, much bigger, much grander, almost infinity. So now devas are basically the rich guys. If I were to use the word. Now when you're doing yajna, you want something, right? You want something in life. Who do you go to? You'll go to rich people.
They're the bankers and the Brahmins of
And we all know bankers and Brahmins are troublemakers, right? And try to get your, where do you go? So you know that इनके पास सब कुछ है यार, सब कुछ है.
साइप्रस की अकाउंट भी होगा.
सब कुछ है, but उन्हीं के पास जाना पड़ता है. So you will make them, the Rig Veda is full of praise. You praise them. Oh, you're so wonderful, you're handsome, you're beautiful, you dance well. Once you're rich, you're everything. And I have nothing to give, but the one thing I have and I have nothing is praise. Everybody has low self-esteem. That's why even the richest people want selfies and social media. And you have to tell them the saris are wonderful and the dresses are wonderful and the Botox doesn't seem to be existing. So when you say that, then maybe they'll throw a jewel in your direction. That's what you want. You want some exchange. Like I gave you all the praise. I spent all 15 minutes praising you. Give me something. And that's the transaction starts. So really our relationship with devas is this transactional conversations. The thing is the devas have the wealth. But you see, once you consume, you have debt. And you have to repay the debt. The devas are not repaying the debt. They want to hoard their wealth. So they're never living a happy life. Devas are always said, Devasura Sangram chal raha hai. The asuras are attacking them and saying, they give us back our wealth. Give us back all the things you stole from us. So they're constantly being hounded. And devas are like, oh, can we not party in peace? Like it's page 3 happening. It's just beautiful. You're rich 3 people saying that, हमारा gated community में इतने लोग क्यों बाहर खड़े हैं? And then and all the deva, Indra is afraid. They'll always say, Indra का सिंहासन डगमगाता है. It's a wobbling throne because the moment another king comes, he feels threatened that, oh, market में एक नया बंदा आ गया है. I will be overshadowed by him. So he's insecure. So all
Madhya Pradesh right now.
But you see, as I tell these stories, they suddenly come alive, right? You suddenly see the people. And you start saying, oh, these are poets writing about life. They're not writing about some fantasy, faraway place. They're talking about people like you and me. We have seen these people. We become these people. It's not that they're outside. They're also inside. God is inside me. I can be an Indra. I can be sitting in my car, my air conditioning, and somebody's knocking on the door, and for me that's the asura. I am the Indra, and they are looking and they want in. They're like, at least give us some money, yaar. Badi gaadi hai tumhari. That's the concept they're trying to explain. So Indra is uska tingasan dagmaga raha hai, and he is afraid of asuras. He's afraid of rishis. The worst thing in the world for him is rishi, someone who doesn't find him interesting. Imagine a beautiful woman walking into the party and nobody looks at her. That's the rishi. Rishi just shuts his eyes and says, I am not interested in your product. Imagine the worst thing for a businessman. Nobody wants your goods and services. I always, when I give my corporate workshop, I said, Rishi kaun hai? The customer who doesn't want your product. Then what do? You send the Apsara, which is the marketing department. And deals or discount ka nritya karke, unhe laya hamare saamne. But that's what Indra is. So Indra's fabulous wealth, all you have to do is to say, but you don't matter. And he hates you because he genuinely believes all the wealth and power in the world makes him important. But you will say that the Rishi says, you don't matter to me.
Of course, he takes a loan from Kuber, but we'll come to that later. Shivji and Parvati are seen to be divinity, quite different from the Devatas in that sense. And yet, Shivji and Parvati, in their understanding, decide that Ganeshji and Kartike need to have their own kingdoms to rule. And what happens?
So these are, when you're explaining a story, you create structures that people are familiar with. So in India, they use family as the structure to explain concepts. So they've used families because then it's accessible, right? When I use trees, when I use animals, these are metaphors, not to be taken literally, unfortunately. Many people do, but they're ideas. They're trying to explain to us that the goddess is, Shivji is saying, I'm not hungry. So I don't want anything. So he lives on a mountain where nothing grows. And he's very fine with it. He's like, I don't want it. Digambara. He has no clothes. He's covered with ash. He's walking around crematoriums. He's, smoking all kinds of stuff. He doesn't care. And the goddess looks at him and says, it's great. You are wonderful. You're superb. You don't. But what about everybody around you is hungry? Isn't that quite selfish of you that you are not hungry, but you're not telling the world the technology of not being hungry? But everybody around you seems to be ravenous. They want more and more and more and more, and they're not happy. You are happy and you have nothing. So clearly you know something that others don't. Why don't you share it with the world? And, she's sort of nudging him to come to earth. So if Shiva is on Mount Kailas, the goddess brings him down to Kashi, which is a metaphor for a rich, fertile landscape, where the marketplace is there, the fields are there, people are living and dying. So the geography changes with the goddess. The goddess brings the geography of the civilization, of culture. And she says food is important. She's Annapurna. And now she has 2 children. She makes this man who has no desires father 2 children. So it's a metaphor that she's doing it for the world. She's like, okay, I have one son who is very powerful. And he's a metaphor for someone who can fight for you. He is like a bodyguard. He is the guy you want in your life who will protect you. And then there's Ganesha, the guy who will feed you. He is all the time in the world. He nourishes you, gives you great food. So whenever you go out in the world, imagine you have these 2 friends, one who protects you and the other who feeds you. You're sorted. So you have got these 2 friends. So the Shiva does nothing, useless. Goddess says, okay, you are useless. I'll produce 2 children out of you who will satisfy the needs of the people. And then they start showing how the relationship between them is fraught because the brothers, there is this conflict. Because while these ideas are so easy to put down on paper.
Did you want to share the story about going around the...
Yeah, so, the famous story is of them going around, right? So the story goes that Narad Muni once comes into Kailas, and Narad Muni is the person who always tells you that you don't have enough. He likes to compare you, contrast you. He's the troublemaker. And he says, I've got a mango for someone.
Sort of the Subramaniam Swami of your...
Well, he is actually the shopkeeper who will tell you that your neighbor has bought better clothes. So he'll come to your house and says, Aapka ghar bahut acha hai, lekin unka ghar aur acha hai.
Shobha Day.
Also.
Just in a...
I don't think she'll approve being called Narad. But yeah, all the gossip papers which make you feel... Instagram constantly making you feel you don't have enough likes, you're not wanted, there is always something better out there. You're FOMO. He is the guru. For me, Narad Muni is someone who makes you feel that he works on your fear of missing out. He makes you feel horrible that somebody's having a better life than you. So he comes and tells that, I have got this mango and I want for someone who goes 3 times around the world. And the story goes that Kartikeya goes around the world 3 times. He goes around the mountains, the rivers and everything, which is objective reality. While Ganesha goes around his parents. And in a way he says, this is my world. And what is more important? The world is important or my world? And it's a question that you can ask, even in to mujhe kar lo duniya muthi mein, this idea that I want to control the world, it captures this idea. Do I want to control the physical world? Or is the whole world something which I construct in my mind and I want to control over that? And these two represent that. In temples, people go round and round. You can go around the deity or you can go around yourself. So pradakshina is of 2 types. One is you go around the deity and the other is you go around yourself. So you can spin around yourself like Ganesha. Ganesha is actually spinning around himself. And Kartikeya is going around the deities and going around the world. So it's a very cute story, but it sort of makes you think, what is reality? Is the world reality? Is the mind reality? And the conflict between the 2 brothers, which leads to separation. So the 2 brothers are never together. Even in a temple, one side is Ganesha and the other side is Kartikeya, because one is power and ego. Well, the gods, this family will not talk about ego. You will talk about how even though you don't have an ego, you don't get along. Oil and water don't have ego, but they don't get along. Right? Things don't get along. Society is designed around tension and conflict, not because you want something. Neither of the brothers, Kartikeya is a very Hanuman-like figure. Someone who is very strong, but doesn't use his strength to intimidate you, control you, dominate you. Hanuman is that figure. He's like, I have all the power in the world, but what do I do with it? Because I don't need it. I have power, and Ganesha is someone who is like basically content. He looks fat and round and everything, but remember, around his belly is a snake who does not eat the rat. And the rat does not eat the laddu in his hand. Nobody's eating. It's like a Mount Kailas. Everybody's content. So it's embodiment of contentment.
And was Kartik one of the first gods of this kind to move south? Because much of the primary Hindu gods belong to the northern or maximum the northeast, where you have Kamakhya, etc. Down south, which is more a Vishnu state, you don't have anything. But Kartikeya, at which point was Kartikeya sort of sent south in our...
Yeah, so the thing is about it's again, I get struggle with language, because when we say this, it almost sounds like you're talking about a historical event. Columbus went, and when did this happen? And the problem is there could be people in this audience who will actually think that on 6,000...
There's a difference between mythology and history.
Yeah,
We're not getting into that in this today, but...
Yeah, but so one has to just put that caveat out there that we're talking at a conceptual level. And with Kartikeya, you see, one of the consistent stories that you have in mythology is of ideas flowing from north to south. So the mountains go from north to south, the rivers go from north to south, gods travel from north to south, rishis travel from north to south. So Agastya Muni travels to the south. In his jhola, he carries mountains or rocks which become mountains. So all the southern mountains are considered to be Dakshin Kailas. Then in his kamandal, the water he carries falls on the...
But that's also because they wanted Kartik to feel at home.
So the story, you have to look at what the story is trying to communicate. The idea is trying to tell all wonderful things comes from the north, which many North Indians believe. Yeah. So all wonderful things, really, the real gods are in Mount Kailas.
हमारे पास राम है, आपके पास
क्या है? So that's the whole thing. So these are stories which are told by Brahmins as they migrated south. And they brought Himalayas with them. They brought the Ganga with them. They brought the Ramayana with them. They brought the Mahabharata with them. They brought Kartikeya with them. The one god of the south, which is Mar Murugan, which is when you read the Sangam poetry, you have these beautiful gods associated with landscape. So when you read Sangam poetry, you have Mar, which people say is Kartikeya. There's this handsome god who is on the top of the mountain. There's another god in the forests. There's another god in the field. There's another god in the sea. There's another goddess in the wilderness. People have force-fitted the North Indian gods with the South Indian gods and saying, oh, the Mar Murugan is really Kartikeya. And these are we're trying to bring people together. And then the god of the forest is Mayo, which is Krishna and Perumal, and then there is the god of the fields, which is Indra, because he's always associated with adultery, and Indra is known for his sexual escapades. Then there is the god of the sea, but we artificially connect it with the Vedic god Varuna, but basically it's the god of longing, because when the husbands would travel by sea, you'd pray to this god and let my husband come back safe and sound. And then there's the goddess Kotravai of the wilderness, which is the Proto-Kali. And she loves the wild spaces where you will die. She loves the fact that you get lost in the road, and you pray to her so that you don't get lost, because she'll feed off your flesh. And Kotravai is this she's surrounded by ghosts and goblins, and the earliest image of hers that we see is the Chamunda image. But these are Tamil ideas. They are not Vedic ideas. But you see this as, I think, when people come together, you say, hey, my God is like your God, and we say there's a similarity, and I see the connection, and that's how communities form. I try to find these spaces. So I think the Kartikeya that we know, because if you go to Haryana, there is in Pahova, there is a temple of Kartikeya, which is very different from the South Indian Kartikeya. South Indian Kartikeya is a virile, handsome god, married to the daughter of Indra, Devasena. He's married to a tribal goddess. So there's something virile and romantic and handsome and dashing about him. But when you go to Pahova and you go to some of the mountainous regions in Dehradun and Orient, you have the Baba Balaknath in Himachal Pradesh, who's considered a form of Kartikeya. This is a very different Kartikeya. He is not linked with women. He is celibate. He's an ascetic. He's very serene. And so much so that in Pahova, the deity doesn't have a skin and doesn't have flesh, because he didn't want to deal with women. And so his mother said, okay, then give me all the parts of your body that comes from a woman. So he gives away his flesh, he gives away his blood. And therefore the deity is always burning, because he doesn't have a skin. So you have to pour oil on him. And you have to pour. So there is this kind of very different Kartikeya which appears in the mountainous regions of India, which many people are not familiar with. But it's there in the mountainous region, very different from the southern mountain Kapurgan, who is this beautiful, gorgeous child. He's a child, he's cherubic, and he's very Krishna-like. Not Krishna, but Krishna-like. And you find this in Tamil Nadu. You don't find this in other parts of India.
So in all of this, what's Vishnu doing hanging around in this beautiful ocean of milk with a snake?
So, see, again, space is being used, and you're using the metaphor of ocean. So, if, in India, we worship the cow. We say cow is so important. A cow is a metaphor for livelihood. So, you have a cow. So, they'll say, mujhe gaay chahiye, is a way of saying, I need a source of income. So, a rishi, in order to be successful, will always say, all the rishis have this wish-fulfilling cow, Nandini or Surabhi or these cows, because the milk is a metaphor for the wealth to survive. I mean, if you want to be a great sage who studies the skies and the stars and the planets all day, you need some source of income, like a tenureship. Nowadays, if you want to be a good professor, you need tenureship, so that you don't think about your billing. So you go to the Raja and say, mereko gaay chahiye. To gaay chahiye. Now, gaay gradually became the earth. So Bhudevi becomes the cow, because agriculture has started. Now, can we imagine a god who lives in an ocean of milk? Which means he has so much wealth that his ocean, it is unbelievable wealth. So you are talking about a god of Lakshmi, unke paas, unke paise, sab jagah hai. But the thing about Vishnu, like Shiva, he doesn't consume the wealth. He's very content. So they're visualizing a god who is content and has access to all the wealth. How would he distribute his wealth? On what basis would someone who is super content and has all the money in the world, how would he distribute wealth? And that's Bhagavan. So that's Vishnu. And therefore the metaphor of the ocean of milk. See, the word Bhagavan has a very interesting root. It comes from the word Bhaga, which is a cut. When you cut, like a pizza is there, and you cut, Bhaga, to bhag nikalta hai. And we say, hamara bhag kya hai? So Bhagavan will decide, tumhara bhag kya hona chahiye. So the word Bhagavan is linked to apportioning.
And what's Mr. Snake doing in all of this?
So now the snake is here. So if you look at Shiva, the snake is always on top of him. While Vishnu, the snake is always below him. So again, they're using space to explain things. Shiva has snake on top of him, always around his neck. But Krishna is dancing on the snake's hood. Vishnu is sleeping on the snake. So snake is below him. So one lets time slither. Snake is a metaphor for time. And one lets time slither over him. The other controls time. And that's how they metaphor. One says let time comes. He's a vairagi. He doesn't care. So the snake, time comes, goes. He doesn't care. The snake just slithers on his body. The other sort of holds the tail, dances on his head and says, this is the time. And so the kings of India they really loved Vishnu's Anantashayan because it is something regal about it, right? You're lying on the snake, goddess of fortune at your feet, everybody's celebrating you, you have all the wealth in the world around you, and you're content and you're sleeping and you're in charge. You're fully in charge.
And where was this? Obviously not in Goa, but where was this ocean?
Well, this ocean is a metaphor. So a metaphor is in the mind, the consciousness. So they use poetry to communicate an idea. So India is the land of metaphors. They understood metaphors right from the Rig Veda, that the only way to explain things that don't exist, but you can conceive, like we always meet people who are rich but discontented.
Or in jail.
Or in jail. Imagine a person who is super rich and super content. Now, since we don't meet this person, I want to imagine this person. And I imagine a Vishnu. And I'm imagining this being who is super content, super happy, but he's always smiling. Now, the difference between him, and I'll give you this example to explain the difference between Shiva and Vishnu. Shiva is also content, right? So both these guys are content, but there's a difference. An asura goes to Shiva and says, oh, you have ash on your body. I know you burnt this Kamadeva, the god of desire. I want that power. I also want to turn everything into ash. And Shiva says, take it. Because he is content, doesn't want anything, take it. Without realizing, the guy is not ready to receive this power. He takes this thing, Bhasmasur, and he takes this Bhasmasur, and what he does is he uses it against Shiva himself. So suddenly, you have this happening. So, with Bhasmasur, ka story is about Shiva ko Bholenath kehte hain. Someone, he doesn't know how to distribute power. He just randomly distributes power. Vishnu, on the other hand, knows that you are a crook. So Vishnu is, in all temples, you will see all those people. The best thing is, I think they should put a camera in all Hindu temples. That image on top of the gods, they should put a nice camera over there so you can see all the rich people looking like beggars when they go to temples. See, hamare jholi bhar do, jhari bhar do. Bhaiya, you have got like $7 million in different accounts around the world, but meri jholi bhar do. So that greed, that hunger, when Krishna will see, he'll smile. So who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? So that is the idea of Vishnu. Someone who's always smiling. He knows your trick. You can't fool him. But he'll say, yeah, of course tumhari jholi bharna hai. And he'll put a kans in your head. Go, take. I'll give you a baby. I will create trouble for you. So Narad Muni is his agent who will always make you feel poor. Narad Muni is someone who will always make you feel poor. You only have one private jet. Unke paas 3 private jet hai.
Only one ED case against you. I mean, come on.
You should see the politicians. आपके पास सिर्फ 4 security guard है, sir. मेरे पास 8 है. Z, Z1, Z plus, ZX, Z.
So Devdutt, obviously, your Shani is in alignment with your Rahu and Ketu because look at the crowd that you've been able to pull and all the millions of books you've sold. But what do these people play? Are these gods? What is their influence on us? Because now we're talking about space as well.
So astrology becomes,
planets more than...
Yeah, so the planets come into the picture in Indian mythology much later, the later traditions. Earlier in the Vedic period, you're looking at sun and the moon and the stars primarily to measure time. Time is important, measuring time, because the seasons change and the festivals and all that. So waxing, waning of the moon, summer, winter, blah, blah, blah. So the early Jyotisha Shastra is completely about calendarization. But gradually the idea of forecasting comes in. And that is when the planets become important. So you have this, there are 7 planets that you can, I won't use the word planets. Graha means a celestial body. There are 7 celestial bodies that are visible to the naked eye. So it's the sun, the moon, then you have Mars, Neptune, Mercury, Venus. So 7, which make the 7th day of the week. And then there are 2, one which causes eclipses and one the comets that keep floating around. in Indian mythology, all of them are male. In many traditions, Venus is female, but in India, Shukracharya is male. So all the grahas are male. The constellations are female. The constellations are female. So with each of these grahas, there's a personality being attributed to them. They're trying to explain, he's like the sun, he's like the moon, he's like Mars, he's like Mercury, he is the Venus, he is like Saturn, he is... so for example, the guru of the devas is Brihaspati, Jupiter. The guru of, or the teacher, or the confidant of the asuras is Shukracharya. So both of them have these helpers, both Brahmins, but the difference between Brihaspati and Shukracharya is this. Brihaspati is what we would call today someone who looks at the Excel sheet. He looks at the Excel sheet, he looks at data, he thinks rationally. While Shukracharya is someone who thinks intuitively. He's creative, he sort of gets ideas on the flash. He's magical, he's mystical, he's occult. So the asuras are linked with someone who is drawn to the occult, and the devas with rational. And suddenly you have these planets have a personality now. And therefore, Brihaspati is now linked with the elephant. Now, Gajamukha is always associated with rational thinking. It's one of the forms. While Shukracharya is associated with this wild, dramatic horse. She's associated with the horse. So the horse and the elephant, both are important, but they're very different animals. One is stately, and the one is stallion is a very different kind of animal. So stallion. So you suddenly see how they're communicating ideas, and while there's an astrological part to it, of course, but they're also talking about human personality. That you will be surrounded. There'll be a sun. There will be a moon. There will be a Mercury in your life. You know, someone who... Mercury is, Mercury is Buddha, and not Buddha as in the Buddha, but Buddha is mercurial, not male, not female, not solid, not liquid. And therefore, what is his animal? His animal is a yali, half lion and half elephant. So even the form of Mercury is very different from, like, Mercury is neither solid nor liquid. Mercury is neither male nor female. Mercury is neither an herbivorous elephant or a carnivorous lion. So you see how it's consistent, and you meet people like that, very good, glib-tongued, silver-tongued. And Mercury around the world is linked with trade, negotiations, the ability to think on your feet, to strike a deal. So also the god of thieves, because he can think on his feet. And that's what Mercury is. So with each of these planets, they are talking about personalities, and you are able to understand the human condition better. That, you know, they're saying all of them are required for your success. You need all of them in the right place at the right time, because there's a time when you need a Mercury, there's a time when you need a Saturn who will delay things, and delay, not let things happen, because you're not ready for it yet. And therefore Shani becomes very, very important, and he will come and just delay things. He'll procrastinate, your file won't move.
So how or at what point in all of this did we find that Shivji abode sits in China? Was it an expansionist plan that he had?
So, you know, see, if you look at these places, much of the Vedic culture emerges in the Gangetic plain, much of it. And then it travels, it radiates out of the Gangetic plain through what is called Madhya Pradesh today, crosses the Vindhya, and then travels across the river deltas. So you can actually map the movement of Indian thought very beautifully. I'm surprised no scholars done much work on it, but it's really, you can match the progress very beautifully, and you can see this flowering of ideas. Now,
there's a Tamil book on this.
Yeah, so it's a very beautiful flowering. See, it's so anyway, that's another. So when you see, where does Mount Kailas located? It is located beyond Badrinath. So if you look at the location of it, it's where Kedarnath, Badrinath, and then Mount Kailas is. Then Mount Kailas is sacred across that region, because it's where the rivers come from. The Brahmaputra moves from there, Ganga comes from there. So you have all these major rivers emerging from there. Manasarovar is there. So it was obviously a very sacred space. But what we don't talk about is that's also a very important trade route. It's a trade route which brought borax. Borax is a chemical which was used by goldsmiths around the world. And the only place you got it is in part of Tibet. And it would come via a trade route, which is where today Kailas, Badrinath, Kedarnath is located in Uttarakhand. And that space probably had a lot of Shiva worshippers. And one of the theses by one scholar is that you really see this confrontation of Daksha and Shiva happening in the Hardwar, Rishikesh area. For the first time, it was really a confrontation between the Vedic culture and the mountain culture. And you see this kind of a so Kailas is there, and of course now new countries emerge. China didn't control what we call China today. Really is the eastern part near the sea coast. It is the Mongols in the 13th century who brought the Uyghurs and Tibet into the Chinese fold. So Chinese will say, like, Indians 5,000 years ago, Tibet was part of us. No, it was not. You had no clue what was Tibet. It was not an important part of your life. Your world was revolved in the coastal regions, which is where even today 90
All around the rivers.
Yeah, the rivers. So that part of China is where is the most populated. The Tibetan side and the Uyghur side is something which the Mongols brought in.
So much later. I know I'm going to open it up for questions. We'll have a little time, but the last question, Devdutt, because it fascinated me, is you talked about the image of Durga or the Devi coming in way before the scriptures sort of represented her. And you talked about how the Kushans, in many ways, brought this image of Durga or the Devi, and the way that, during Durga Puja on the 11th or the minus 10th day, that you have, the opening, you talk about how Durga was created.
Yes.
And in many ways, you look at making sure that she was created by each and every one of the important gods, which arrived later. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, it's when you're studying mythology, you have to see what are the sources that you have, right? You have textual sources, you have archaeological sources, you have oral scriptures. So you have to look at a bunch of things.
And paintings.
And paintings. Material evidence, which is called, and then you have textual evidence. Broadly, you classify them into two. Textual evidence is from the Devi Bhagavatam, comes from Markandeya Puran, which is around 6th, 7th century. Roughly with the Puranic ages at its height, and then you have this goddess appearing in this massively powerful form, multiple armed, killing this buffalo, and you have these images in Udaygiri and all that, these fabulous Mahishasura Mardini images appearing. And
Releasing, not killing. Releasing Mahishasura.
These are words, I'm okay with the word killing, so political, so that's different depending on the audience, but if you look at archaeologically, I find similar image of a buffalo being killed by this goddess, which is coming in Kushan seals. The Kushans are about 100 CE, that's 1900 years ago, and the textual evidence is about 1400, 1500 years ago. So there's a gap that you see, and you're wondering why this gap is. There is reference to Vindhyavasini in the Mahabharata, but there's no this killing of the buffalo, which is a very important motive. Where did it come from? We don't know. We can argue that it came from the Kushans brought it, because there's a goddess called Nana, which rides a lion, and it's found in the Persia. It's part of the Persian pantheon. But in India, in the tribal communities, the slaughter of the buffalo is an important part of agricultural rituals. Because if you, in an agricultural community, when you have a cow, it's useful because it brings milk and it'll have more children. But a male animal is a problem. Now, amongst cows, the bull can be castrated and used to pull as a beast of burden. You can use it in the field, you can use it as a bullock cart. But as far as buffaloes are concerned, male buffalo is a problem. It's not as obedient as a bull. And therefore, the easiest thing to do is slaughter it. And these beautiful black, massive creatures are slaughtered. But you don't want to slaughter an animal, right? Nobody wants to slaughter it. You have to slaughter it. So you now construct a narrative of really the demon entered his body and therefore the goddess is killing. And now somehow you cope with the act of killing, but you also enjoy its meat, because then suddenly you have a large amount of protein. I once asked one of people ki, tum Dasara kyun yaad karte ho? And they said, Dasara ke samay sir, humko non-veg khane ko milta hai. And you realize how poor people are. They don't have access to animals. The only time they get to eat meat is when the rich man brings the big buffaloes and slaughters it during Durga Puja. And that meat is cooked. And then he says that 1 year, main wo Devi ke liye. So he's waiting for the goddess to feed him the one food he doesn't get throughout the year. And suddenly you understand how the concept of Annapurna emerges. She feeds him. So the killing is, you think of a kitchen ritual. When you see a kitchen, What happens in a kitchen? You are using very violent language. You like cooking, right? So you enjoy, you pound, you cut, you smash, you grate. They are all very violent activities. There's nothing delicate about cooking. You need...
I do it with good intent.
Yes, of course, to feed the world. But you can also take away, beat it up and break it down and cut it into fine pieces, chop it up nicely. The joy, all your violence is taken out of you. And then you relish it like the goddess, And that's what the goddess is doing. She is so it's a battlefield, but it's also the kitchen. And you suddenly realize that there's a motive happening over there, which perhaps has many roots. There is a Kushan root, there is a royal root, because the kings were slaughtering people. And now suddenly they got a goddess saying that recently when Diwali, the Shama is dancing with Rundamal. Who's Rundamal? So when a king goes to battle and he kills, say, 100 men, he has to deal with the guilt of killing 100 people. He said, no, I have given Shama, the goddess Kali I have given her bhog. So now he's coping with him through these narratives, and therefore he takes the heads, and he would, in the old days, the kings would, in fact, there's a very famous Tamil work called, Kalinga Padni, and which describes the ghosts getting so excited because there's a war happening in Kaling, and they'll get to eat flesh and bone and crunch on the eyeballs of great warriors. So these are the kind of visuals that Indians wrote, and these are my sources. And this is where I found...
My favorite ghosts are Shakchunnis and Mecho ghosts, but that's a separate story. Quick last question. It's not going to be quick, but you talk about the great places that you have to go to. Why is it that a Rishikesh or a Haridwar or a Allahabad or a Varanasi are these great sort of portals and tirthas? And to that, also, maybe you can end by talking about, what is the river that divides us between the afterlife and this life?
So, see, in India, pilgrimage is one thing which I believe unites India. It sort of weaves the country together. When Buddha passed away, his bones people fought over his bones, and they say Ashoka finally found the bones and distributed them in 84,000 stupas across India. And the Buddhists were told, travel across 84,000 stupas and you'll get enlightenment. So it's a way of saying that you travel around. And then the Hindus came along and said, oh, we also want a story like this. And they came up with a story that, Shiva got upset when Shakti died, and he took her dead body around the world, and then Vishnu cut the body into 50 pieces, depending on which version, 64 pieces, 50 pieces. And those Shakti peats, where her body parts fell, are where the Shakti is. So if you want to get freedom or moksha, you have to travel to all the Shakti peats.
Or forgiveness of your sin if you go to
you suddenly travel is getting a motivation. It's not, why do I go on a holiday because I'm bored? No, you go on a holiday because you want moksha. Now that sounds great. Like you invest in a holiday plan, moksha ke liye humko 4 dham jana hai. So even the government of India right now is promoting pilgrim spots because McKinsey told them that the easiest way to generate wealth in all sacred spaces is just tourism industry. So, you do an Instagram, say, मैं बाबा जी के पास आया हूँ, मैंने शिव जी के पास आया हूँ, and suddenly there are 100 people going there, and now, of course, there is a price you pay. Once you have a pilgrim traffic, it also affects the ecosystem, environment, and that's a different conversation. But pilgrimage is, the British, the Mughals earned a lot of money through pilgrim tax, because every pilgrim would give 1 coin to the pilgrim, and they're toll tax, and there's a lot of money there. Puri temple was famous for its pilgrim tax. There's a story of a Mughal governor who was told by Aurangzeb that, destroy this temple. And he's like, but you're going to ask me the money still, right? How will I generate money if there's no temple over there? Then he says, what do I do? Create an effigy of him, and we'll tell the religious establishment we broke the temple. Don't tell them you actually broke the temple, because the pilgrim tax has to come, because Lakshmi will always win, no matter what the religion is. And I think that power was very strongly done because people understood money and they understood pilgrimage. Yatra se paise bante hain. Now, one of the greatest yatras in this world is life itself, and you die. And when you die, the old Hinduism believed in burial of the dead. So you batal, you go. So always we talk about hell as under the earth because people used to bury the dead. But then that's why you have the Vedic verses where they say the mother embrace me, mother embrace me. So the early practice was burial. But then gradually people said, oh God, if people are buried under the earth, they'll be wandering around like ghosts. We don't want ghosts. we want to be reborn. How do you reborn? You have to go to the other world. How do you go to the other world? You have to do certain rituals which only Brahmins can conduct. So you have to pay the Brahmins, you'll conduct the ritual. You will go to Vaitarani, you will cross the river Vaitarani, and you will go to the land of the dead, the Pitraloka. And that's the Shraddha rituals that we have. The Shraddha rituals which we have is about enabling and telling the ancestors that one day you'll come back. Don't worry, you'll come back one better life. So you suddenly have another space being created, the human space of the living world and the space of the dead. So you have different kinds of spaces being created. Swarglok, Patal Lok, Rakshas Lok, Nag Lok, Pitra Lok. And I think these are the different worlds. And वहाँ जाने के लिए भी visa लगता है. वहाँ पे भी passport चाहिए. So you have to do all kinds of rituals to get access. You need to carry food. When dead cannot go, so you do the Shraddha ritual so that the dead can go to the other side. So the whole Shraddha ritual is about feeding all rice. Rice is used a lot in all the any tirth you go, you do the Shraddha rituals. And it's about, and if you look at the directions, and I'd like to conclude, if you don't mind, it's something that I'd like to tell people, that how much space plays an important role in life. When you say, we use the Hindi word Purohit. The Purohit comes from Purva, he who looks towards the east. In the old days, the gods, Agni would be placed on the east, and they would say, jo Purva mein baithta hai, wahi Purohit hai. So that is Purva. Now, when you look at the east, when you are going around the gods, you will say Pradakshina. Dakshina is south. So move in the direction of south. Wherever you are, turn south, turn south, turn south. That's the clockwise direction. So you have Purva ke taraf dekho, Dakshin ke taraf jao, and when you go towards Dakshin, you come to Uttara. And Uttar also means the answer. Uttar means the answer. So पूर्व में प्रश्न उठता है, दक्षिण के तरफ जाओ, फिर उत्तर में तुमको उत्तर मिलेगा. So how words, space, time, everything collapsing.
So Uttar milega. Any questions for these Uttars? So I'm going to take them in bunches. Please, a question, not a comment.
So there have been various, when we talk about mythology, it starts from Vedic Puranas and then Upanishads and then so on and so forth. And like you just explained, while we move from north to south, the narrative kind of changes. It in some way blurs the original meaning of the whole thing. And then, so there are multiple texts and books which keep repeating the same thing but in a little different way. Recently, there have been various texts, like somebody's writing a book on the perspective of Sita, and so this way the whole, what do you think of the whole idea? Like
Argument truth is what you're asking. All that.
So my question is, right, as we are technologically advancing, we are diving deep into more human constructs. Everything around us, there's a human construct. Then we have my name, the language, the nation states. If we talk about the modern constructs, we have communism, capitalism, human rights, justice, etc. We are diving more into. Then we have internet, then we have memes, etc. We are diving more into this human construct. And when you see this as a third perspective, and you realize that nothing actually matters. Everything is around us is a human construct that gives us meaning. How do you fight? How do you cope with the horror of it?
So Maya, how do you cope with the horror of it? Truth and one last question there. Yeah.
So are Ramayana and Mahabharata metaphor? What do you think so?
So metaphor, Maya, and perspectives.
So everybody's looking for this one answer that works for them, right? So let me put it this way. Everybody needs carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. But in which format should I give it to you? Should it be a pasta? Should it be a roti? Should it be a bread? What if you have diabetes? What if you have high cholesterol? Every human being has a different constitution. So while everybody needs carbohydrates, fats, proteins, the way it is given to you is different. So it is served differently. So you have different versions, different stories, depending on different periods of time. And remember, technology will change, but hunger doesn't change. Hunger doesn't change. You may have refined flour, you may have Maggi noodles, you may be a hunter forager. Technology does not change hunger. And mythology deals with this primal emotion called hunger, bhook. Because what is hunger? Hunger is that which differentiates the organism from the object. So we don't use the word hunger in polite circles. We use words like ambition. I remember this person said, I don't want anything, I just have ambition. I'm not hungry at all. So ambition is a polite word for, and basically when you think of hunger, you have to think of Bhaskar. So when somebody says think big, he's basically a Bhaskar who wants more. Now what truth will work for the Bhaskar? Because he's constantly seeking something to satisfy his hunger. So all these ideas, these books that are being written, they're all trying, you have to ask yourself, why are you writing what you are writing? Why are these human constructs being created? Why is this technology being created? We're all trying to address this very simple thing called book. And that's what we're trying to, that's all. It comes down to, it's not existential horror, because we discover you are victim as long as you don't get food. The moment you start eating food, you become the villain because you've eaten someone else. And really life is that conversation. So all these varieties that we see which can scare us. I mean, we can see thousands of trees, but all trees are hungry. Therefore, they produce leaves. But the leaf is different because every plant is trying to produce food differently, but they need food. So really mythology is very simple. Whether it's a metaphor or history or geography or philosophy, mythology is only trying to answer this question, what will take away that hunger? I asked, when you meet Elon Musk, you should say, can you make an app that will reduce hunger? Can you create an app that will reduce jealousy? Can you create an app that will make you content, santosh? And then Instagram, I found this wonderful line, which is my favorite line, which says, Garib kahe Amir Sukhi, Amir kahe Raja Sukhi, Raja kahe Indra Sukhi, Indra kahe Chakravarti Sukhi, Chakravarti kahe Ram Sukhi, Ram kahe Rishi Sukhi, Rishi kahe jo santosh wahi sukhi. Now all those mythology books, all that technology, all those metaphors are trying to only resolve this one little issue. We are all trying to make pasta and bread, but we need carbohydrates, fats, protein.
From here, first question, second, the lady in the black. I'll come with the back.
Now, first of all, a big thank you would be a small word to acknowledge all the books which we have read as children and reliving them through your stories. And the question again, coming to the topic which you said, which we all would know, but again the same thing, we through your books which we came to know, like Radha is just, we came to know about Radha, that is Sri Krishna's Radha, late through Gita Govind. But again, when we go to see Vrindavan, see those places, they show us places where she stayed, she's grown up. So actually, where does this come from? The place Barsana.
Mythology and history. The next, yeah, go ahead.
Namaskara. I recently visited Puri Jagannath, God's grace, and I had learned this, Namaskara. Sir, sending you lots and lots of good wishes and blessings. And you know, the most beautiful part of the day is your attire. It's absolutely complementing the beautiful Sunder Nursery. Sir, I would like to know your personal favorites, your personal favorite holy city.
Hi, sir. A little off topic, related to your book only, Sita. It's one of my favorite books. So when you, like at the end, it's on the back cover as well. That line has stayed with me. When Sita replies to Lakshman, they are having a chat about Ram. And she says that, what do you think? He abandoned me. He's God, he abandons no one, and I'm a goddess. I cannot be abandoned by anyone. That line has stayed with me and it felt me, you know, it made me feel empowered, and my friends as well. I've gifted it to all my female friends. So what were your thoughts while you were writing that? And what was your objective as a writer?
So one is holy city, holy temple, Geet Govind and Sita. I'll come back.
See, when you read when you talk about Geet Govind, when you're talking about Radhas, and a place becomes what it is because of people's faith. विश्वास से भगवान का जन्म होता है. अगर विश्वास नहीं होगा तो भगवान नहीं होंगे. It's as simple as this. Tree can become God if you decide to worship it. शिवलिंग के पास कुत्ते को भेज दो, वो उसके ऊपर he'll urinate on it. He will not say, oh my God, this is Rudra avatar. No, he doesn't know the difference. You have decided. That is the human mind. What of the unique thing humans have is we create value. So I can create value. That's what brand. You talk to any brand guru, they can give value to anything. So we decide कि यहाँ राम जी बैठे थे, वहाँ पे सीता बैठी थी, वहाँ पे ये खा रहे थे. So for example, if you ask where was Hanuman born, if you go to Maharashtra, there are two places where Hanuman was born. There is one place in Karnataka where Hanuman was born. In Andhra Pradesh there is a place. And somebody will say, दिल में भगवान बसते हैं यार, मेरे उनका जन्म इधर हुआ है. Who is right? So it is the Vishwas, not the Brahmin, who decides where gods are born. So depending on you, again, depends on what is your intellectual capacity. Some people don't have the intellectual capacity. They need a Brahmin to tell them that God was born here. Because they outsource decision making to someone else. For such people, the Guru will tell where the child is. For other people, they'll figure it out themselves. So enjoy the idea that the person believes that this is where Radha was and have fun. You'll see those trees and you'll believe at that moment, हाँ, कि यहाँ हुआ था. But then when you go to Africa, they'll say, what is Krishna? They have never heard of Krishna. But वो तो Paramatma है, वो सब जगह है. No African Masai will understand what you're talking about. Right? If you go to the Zulus, they won't understand it. It's a cultural phenomena, which sounds so profound to you, is absolutely no meaning to the Inuit people, or to the Chinese, or to the Japanese. And the same thing when you're talking about which is my favorite temple. Well, my favorite temple is the place where I get money from. जहाँ मुझे अच्छा प्रसाद मिलता है वही अच्छा मंदिर. हाँ, so जैसे प्रसाद, जहाँ प्रसाद मिलेगा वहाँ पे हम जाएंगे, वो मेरा favorite temple. So there is no favorite as such. You find different spaces and you enjoy. Some temples are beautiful for the artwork. Some people, temples are great because of cultural connection. Jagannath Puri is important to me because I am on Odia. You just have a natural connection. And I notice that when I take my Marathi friends to Jagannath, they're like, but this Krishna guy, and they're like, this doesn't look like Krishna temple. They'll say, nothing is better than Pandharpur. You go to Pandharpur and say, Pandharpur is the greatest temple. Really, you talk to Gujaratis, they will say, Rajasthan mein Udaipur Nathdwara is the greatest temple. So everybody believes, and of course, the Tamilian will say it is always Madurai or Chidambaram or Ranganatha Swami. So everybody has their own favorite temples, and these are cultural phenomena. They are not objectively created. And as far as, see, the series of book that you are reading is a book where I use fiction and retelling to explain Hindu concepts. So the word God is translated as Purusha, and the word goddess is translated as Prakriti. So Purush pervades everywhere, Prakriti is present everywhere. So all forms of separation are illusions. So that's really the Advaita concept. So that line really which you're reading over there is really Advaita, which is saying the God doesn't abandon anyone and the goddess cannot be abandoned by anyone. But how they're explaining this concept using a story of Ram and Sita, I want people to understand how a philosophy transforms into a story, into a character, into a plot point, or ghom firke, it will come back to this idea of Purusha Prakriti. So you cannot understand Ramayana Mahabharata unless you understand Purusha Prakriti. It's not Shakespeare's play. People make the mistake of looking at Ramayana and Mahabharata as Hamlet, or no, it's not. That purpose of Hamlet is very different. The purpose of Ramayana and Mahabharata is very different. When they were designed and they were put together, they were written as Pancham Ved to communicate Vedic ideas. That's the basis on the basis of which these books were written. So you have to understand, when you're saying Ved, what does it mean? And then you see so many, as the gentleman said, so many versions are there. You have to go to the basics. And really the basic is, I mean, if ever I'll tell people, the basic is, मुझे भूख लगा है, मुझे खाना चाहिए. बस उतना ही.
And remember, all of this comes from our oral tradition. The Vedas were written much later in the whole pantheon of our traditions. 1500 years later, the Vedas were a collection.
Written works in India are a small portion of Indian thought. Art, paintings are again a small portion because only the privileged could afford to make. See, the rangolis which the women do, which wipes out every day, contains so much of knowledge. But it's wiped out every day, so you have no record. When did it start? Who did the first rangoli? Why did they do it? How did they do it? We have no record of it.
And it celebrates impermanence most importantly.
Namaste, sir. Sir, my question is regarding, you started with the point that how the ancient folklores, they cherish nature. And nowadays we see our rituals wherein we dump puja waste in rivers. And then there's this conversation happening while my Dadaji's Shrad at my place that we know that puri is harmful for the cows and we still feed them. So can you just highlight like why these rituals came into
Rituals, okay.
Hello, sir. Actually, my coming back to the geography, see we see generally that Hinduism stories are mostly located in the southeastern subcontinent, right? I wanted to ask if Puranas also talk about the other parts of the world and how do they give Hinduism a universal outlook?
My question is in two parts. The first part is it the geography space which gives importance to a particular god, or is a particular god which gives importance to a particular space, geographical space? And second part is the scales of geography. Like where does God reside? In Kashi, or in the temple of Kashi, or the Garbhagriha of Kashi? Which is a complete contrast with when we say God resides in every particle. Bhagwan har kan mein baste hain.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Ritual.
Where does God reside?
Universal.
Universal. How does Hinduism sort of universal? And the first one was
Rituals.
the ritual.
So, see, when the flag hoisting takes place, we all stand up, right? We have decided standing up is a mark of respect. But everybody who stands doesn't necessarily respect. We have given a meaning to the act of standing up. Rituals are not rational. Like in a birthday, a cake is brought, you light candles on it, then you spit on it, and then you cut it and you distribute it to people and you eat it. Why? Why don't you just eat dokla?
Pre-COVID, of course.
Yeah. No, nowadays, see, if you don't get the cake with the sparkling, and the children will get upset because for them, that's the birthday. That's the birthday ritual. There's no logic. Imagine in a culture where blowing out lamp is considered inauspicious. You are telling children from birth ki har birthday ko blow out candles. And the more candles you blow out, it's better. Now, the thing is, rituals by definition are not rational. So, don't ever rationalize rituals. They're practices. So, if you say, why puri gai ko kyun khila rahe hai? Snake doesn't drink milk. The poor snake is tortured.
But
every
Ganesh ji
year.
does, as we know.
So, we know that a मूर्ति को भूख नहीं लगती है, लेकिन हम उन्हें नैवेद्य चढ़ाते हैं. Really, you do the नैवेद्य because उसके बाद वो प्रसाद में बटेगा and we are going to eat it. So that is why we are excited about the नैवेद्य, because ultimately I am going to eat the नैवेद्य as प्रसाद because भगवान ने उसको छू लिया. So rituals are not to be rationalized. People try to rationalize rituals is a very foolish thing. Rituals by definition are to be irrational. इसलिए जब बॉस आएगा तो खड़े हो जाओ. अरे क्यों खड़े हो जाओ? या पैर छुओ. There is no rationality to it. It's not a universal practice. If it is rational, it will be universal. All human beings eat. That's not a rational act. It's everybody is hungry, you are eating. But respect is shown in different parts of the world differently. Therefore, custom, etiquette is always different. कोई नमस्ते करता है, कोई bow करता है. Chinese do something else. So, and that's a topic by itself. But short answer, rituals are not rational.
And therefore, you should question them as you did in your Dadaji's Shrad.
But at the end of the day, if you don't give puri to that cow, people will get upset. They will say, अभी तुमने देखा अभी उनको उनका आत्मा को शांति नहीं मिलेगी. So poor cow, make sure there's enough grass and maybe a little tiny puri kept over there. So we have upayas. Indians are very good at finding upayas. हर चीज में astrologer will tell you there's a problem. The next question is upay batao Maharaj. So Indians are the land of upay, pagdandi. We don't believe in highways. We want pagdandi. The question about universality, see, all mythologies are cultural and they're local. They're not universal. And that's where the problem starts, because now we are dealing with religions which are breaking their geographical spaces. And they're going, because of internet, they're traveling everywhere. So now tomorrow somebody say, I believe in a Mexican god. And Mexican god wanted the blood of humans to be ripped out of the heart so that the sun will rise. And then tomorrow people will start doing that, saying that freedom of religion. I have the right to rip out people's heart. The thing is, rituals belong to space, time, mythologies. They all belong to a particular space and time, and they work very well at that space and time. We are now creating these universal ideas. By definition, culture is not universal. Therefore, mythology is not universal. They are not meant. What is universal? Remember, even if I'm going to explain to someone Islamic lore or Christian lore, I will always begin with hunger. Remember, when you read the Bible in the Old Testament, in Genesis, the story will always begin with, there's a garden eat of everything but not that fruit. It comes to hunger again. So Judaism, Christianity, Islam, hunger, food. When you talk of Greek mythology, you'll talk of Tantalus, standing and waiting to eat the fruit, and the fruit comes and goes away from him again, Bhuk. Or Sisyphus, who works more than 70 hours a week and doesn't get any money. Sounds familiar? So that's universal for you. Bhuk jahan hogi, wo universal hai. And the question about where does God reside? See, it depends, as I said, on the politics of the situation. So, to win elections, a God has to be located in a city. To find spiritual bliss, God has to reside inside your body. So you decide, you want spiritual bliss or you want to win elections. And you'll find your God.
On behalf of a suitable agency, a big thank you to Devdutt Pattanaik for being so extraordinary.